Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, my name is Layla. For this video, I'm going to be doing a wrap-up of everything that I read in April 2024. I only have 3 books to talk about for this video because I started reading Aka War, the 3rd book in the ACOTAR series. It's over there. I did finish it yesterday, but I'll talk about that in May. But because I started reading that book, it's a huge book, so it took me the bulk of the month to read. But before that, I read and finished 3 books. First book was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. And for rating, I'm going to give this a 3.25 out of 5. And I think it was a pretty good book overall. It was very cute. It's like a cozy fantasy. I'll talk about like what it's about in just a minute. But it wasn't anything that really pulled me in. Like I wasn't super excited to read it. And there were some parts where I was like either zoning out or I guess zoning out. So I'd have to go back and reread it, or I definitely like missed some parts of it. But then there are other parts, like I can still remember a lot about this book, but for whatever reason, it took me a long time to get through. And I think maybe it could have been shorter, or maybe it's just I wasn't super engaged into it, so it just felt really long. But the main character in this book is Linus, and he is a by-the-book caseworker in the department in charge of magical use, or the DCMY. So basically he goes to these little magical orphanages and gets to see these children that have these special powers and they're like magical and stuff, and he makes sure that the orphanage is doing everything right, like they're still safe to be open, that sort of thing. And then the people above him, the people in charge of this magical youth program or whatever it is, they asked to meet with him because they have an important task for him, which is going to this place. It's near the Cerulean Sea. And they want him to go there to stay for a few weeks and make sure that this little magical orphanage is safe. Like they should be able to stay open. And when he gets there, he's very afraid of these children. I can't remember how many of them there are. There's like 6 or 8 of them, but they are like very magical or like very special. And one of them is even, his name is Lucifer, but he goes by Lucy because he's like the child of the devil. He's like basically the devil. And so Linus is freaking out about that. And even like as soon as he gets there, he meets one of the little girls. She's a gnome, like a garden gnome, but a girl with like, she looks like a boy, like has a beard and stuff. And right away she's like threatening him, like I will hit you across the head with a shovel and bury you right in my garden, that sort of thing. So he's terrified and he brings his little cat with him. He gets to stay. There's a number of other characters, children. The master of the orphanage is Arthur, who Linus also finds kind of weird and just like a mystery, I suppose. But yeah, he continues his stay at this orphanage and it goes on from there. So you get to learn more about all of the children, you get to learn more about the master, about Linus, and overall it's a very cute and cozy story. I did enjoy getting to know about the characters, but since they are these like little creatures, if you Google the characters of this book, I think that's helpful as you're going through it, because then you can imagine what they look like, because there's one of them that it's like it describes what he looks like, but you really don't even understand. Like it's hard to comprehend it in your mind. So if you look up other people's fan art and stuff, you can see what other people think they look like, and I thought that was helpful. Overall, I think it's a pretty good book. I think it is worth reading, but not a book that I would pick up again. But I do remember quite a lot from it, and usually, I don't know why some books, like usually that happens with books that I didn't enjoy that much. I end up remembering specific parts about it or specific characters, but doesn't mean I would pick it up again. Also, something that I'm always curious about, I bought this book used, and it came from City of Port Townsend Public Library, and you can see that there's library stickers on it, and I'm always curious about that. Like, how did that end up happening? Did somebody steal this book and then sell it, or did they like no longer want this book at the library? Was it banned? That sort of thing. There is like a queer relationship in this, and yeah, and maybe because it talks about Lucifer, I don't know. I'm just always curious when I get a used book that's from a library. Like, why? Next up is The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And I put this book off for quite some time because if you look on Goodreads, this has pretty bad reviews. and I don't know why it has bad reviews. I thought it was really enjoyable. Like, I could not put this down. As soon as I started reading it, I was intrigued basically the whole time. Because of that, I'm going to give this a 3.75 out of 5. I'm pretty positive this is her first book that she ever wrote, and I think she was writing this while she was working a full-time job. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool, and she's written a number of other books, and I would definitely be open to reading more books from her. Like, I think this was pretty good, and I didn't want to put it down. The main character of this book, her name is Sarah, and of course she's a lawyer. And then there's her husband, Adam. And Adam is having an affair. He is cheating on his wife, Sarah. And then one day, after spending a night, Adam and the mistress, they spend a night together, and the woman, he does not know this, but the woman is dead. His mistress is dead, stabbed like dozens of times. So who ends up being his lawyer? His wife. So he was cheating on his wife, but the wife is still going to defend him as his lawyer. And he's like, I know I did not do this. The two of them are trying to like figure out who it could be. So she's doing all these different investigations. He's doing his own investigations like an idiot. She's trying to get like the police involved. So it just follows this journey of her defending her husband. And there's like a number of things that happened. And I thought this was really enjoyable. There's definitely some like flaws in it. It was a little bit predictable. Actually, throughout the book, I was like, oh, I think it might be that person or it might be that person. And I was wrong. And I can't remember if I did end up guessing the end. I don't think I did completely, but it started to click for me as I got closer toward the end. But I still think this was quite enjoyable, and I would recommend it, and I would read more Geneva Rose books. All right, and then the third book that I read was The Teacher by Frida McFadden. This is actually my sister's book. She bought it a few weeks ago and let me borrow it, but she hasn't even read it yet, so shout out to her for letting me borrow it. This is the fourth book that I've read by Frida McFadden. The first one I read was Never Lie. I didn't really like it, but then I read The Housemaid Secret, and then this one. And Frida McFadden is an author now at this point that I will read anything of hers because it's just super fast paced. Her writing in Never Lie, in my opinion, was not good, but it has been better in the last 3 books I've read of hers. And yeah, so at this point, I would read any of her books. Like, I want to. I'm probably going to buy every single one day. Because of the contents of this book, I'm not sure what I would rate it. I also feel like it was a little bit slower paced than her other ones that I read. So I think I'm going to give it a 3.75 overall. It definitely gave me the ick. Like, it's just not a pleasant, overall it was just icky, you know, like you feel icky reading it because of the situation. And this switches back and forth between 2 people. First person is Eve. She is a math teacher at a high school, and then her husband is also a teacher. I think he teaches English at the same high school. And her husband is like very attractive, apparently. Like, all the students love him, everybody loves him, and she's kind of like the biatch at the school, basically. And then it follows Addie, and she had caused some trouble in the past with a teacher, a male teacher who ended up having to leave the high school because she was like involved with him. I don't think they did anything like sexually, anything like that, but they got too close, and she like kind of became just like leaned on him a lot. So it will explain it throughout the book. But then Addie becomes the student of both Eve as her math teacher and then the husband as the English teacher. And she also ends up joining like the husband's English group, poetry group, whatever. And it develops from there. Like, Eve is concerned about Addie as a student of hers and of her husband's. Going into this, I didn't really know what to expect, so I don't want to explain much further than that. Like, I personally prefer going into books pretty blind, and that's how I went into this, and I did enjoy it. Like I said, it was a little bit slower. It was kind of just developing the storyline, developing what was happening, but then some crazy shit happens, and by the end of it, literally, like the last few pages, my jaw dropped. The book itself is pretty shocking and disturbing. Nothing like crazy graphic or super gross, but it in and of itself, it was pretty disturbing. But then toward the end of it, I just did not expect the twist and had like just no clue that was coming. I didn't even guess that or think that. And my jaw literally dropped. Like, I was shook. So Frida McFadden, again, just another fun, chaotic, unhinged book. That's her style of writing, and I would recommend it for sure. This was great. Then I started reading ACOWAR, and like I said, it took me all through the end of April, and I just finished by, the 9th day of May. So I'll talk about that for May's wrap-up video. Let me know if y'all have read any of these and what you thought of them, or please feel free to share what you read in April, what you're currently reading, any good recommendations. But otherwise, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.